Welcome back to Oratio Podium, your stage for mastering the art of the spoken word. Today, we are honored to host Collins Chinonzo, a graduate teaching assistant in Applied Sociology at Northern Arizona University currently. Collins brings a uniquely powerful perspective to the table. Collins is not just a scholar dedicated to tackling global health and mental health disparities, he is also an internationally acclaimed former debater who helped bring the African voice to the global arena during the most challenging of times like the COVID 19 pandemic. Join us as we explore his journey from the University of Nigeria debate circuit or to his current research profile, dissecting how the rigorous skills of advocacy, analysis, and persuasive communication have shaped their voice, their leadership, and their commitment to discovering talent through the power of debate. Collins, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Would you like to say a bit about yourself before we dive right in?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. It's a privilege to be here, and I'm very happy to be sharing my experiences and my journey so far that started somewhat in 2018 up until this moment. So I'm very grateful to share these opportunities with our listeners, and I hope people learn and see the little impacts that I was able to make during my years as an active debater. Thank you.
That's going to be pretty fun. I also remember that I started out in 2018 as well. That was my first foray into debating. So it would be an interesting journey to explore when you are discussing different aspects of your journey. So, what first drew you into the world of debating? I think that is a predominant question that I need to ask everybody. Like, what was the interesting part about debating that drew you to it?
Okay, during my high school days, I tried as much as possible to, you know, represent, rather watch debating, but I wasn't interested. I never represented my high school in any interstate or regional tournaments. But I do realize that I had some classmates of mine who happened to go to the governor's debate, interstate debate, the national secondaries or high school debate competitions. But when I joined the University of Nigeria in 2017, I witnessed a very somewhat like uh, a debate tournament that I participated. But then I was participating as like it was my very first time. So, and I didn't know what to make out of that particular debate. But after that experience, I made up my mind that I was going to go into this sport. And I figured out that I could do very well from the sport. So by 2018, I think that was when I, became fully invested and very interested in debating. So I think that was what led to my decision to participate in debating tournament and championship.
You mentioned these particular aspects around people around you and surrounding you doing debating. I think for me, early on, also my experiences were that I was not able to have those particular people in school who had debating experiences. And I usually just, a lot of people in India just start out in college as well. But there would have been very much like teething problems, if you might refer to it as such, like the early challenges that you faced when you were developing your own voices and then you were developing your own style of debating. So what were these things that you probably noticed when you were starting out early on?
Well, in 2017, when I firstly did my debate, I knew that was when I came to the understanding that there is what they call echo chamber. That is, there are people or persons who have been there before you, and because they have been there before you, the chances that you are going to prove yourself is very, very minimal. So I could still remember I in UN, and then I my very first in 2017, before I fully entered into debating, I had to debate alongside people like Henry Wakwe, um, Chibuzon Dubisi, Ononye Odinaka Ella. So these were people that were very good. And so trying to fit into that umbrella wasn't an easy thing. But I think after 2017, when I ventured into debate, there was something that Ella told me because I let her partner one of them. And she was like, the goal is not to fight with anybody or to prove yourself to anybody but to yourself. You have to believe that you can do this and then you have what it takes to take you to the next level. So these were the things like I felt very, very comfortable listening to, and that helped me to navigate my own personal feelings of insecurity and my own imposter syndrome, and which helped me to cultivate a very strong opinion when it comes to debate. And that became my standing ground that helped me dealt with my fears, my individualistic biases, and my personal bias to people that I feel like they are already there and they might likely do better than me. So those were just the things I did, and that was how I was able to deal with those imposter syndrome. And I got into it and I started doing very fine for myself.
The interesting fact that you mentioned here is that there were peers in your group where you were often like challenged and often like either impressed or maybe questioning your own self as to why you would do that. And I think that has occurred to a lot of people. So I think the first thing that I'll probably like follow up with on that is that if you have peer groups, often people get very nervous in approaching them, but they sometimes also don't take the benefit of having good peers. So how did you like manage that? You mentioned having conversations with Ella, you mentioned having like different conversation points with different individuals and learning from them. So what advice would you give to people who are starting out when they are approaching these kind of peers and peer groups?
The truth is, at every point in our life, even if you are moving to a new career, you are moving to a new college, you are moving into a new profession, you will always meet people that are there before you. And if you are not very careful, there are chances that you are going to be blown away by who you meet. So, my advice to anyone who is trying to get into debate, who is trying to join a particular profession is admit that you are vulnerable, admit that you have those biases, admit that there are people who you would compete or who you have to be intimidated by for you to discover yourself. The problem is people don't always admit that these things exist. And when people don't admit that it exists, it becomes a problem. You cannot solve a problem that you don't believe is a problem. You cannot address something that you don't see as a problem. So those are the things that really puts people off guard, especially when they have failed to recognize, to identify, and to solidify that this is a problem. So, my advice would be acknowledge it, identify it, be proud that this is the problem you are going to face. The moment you accept this responsibility, it gives you the opportunity not to feel inferior and not to see those persons as competition, but then to see them as people who would push you to learn to deal with those identified obstacles. Do not shy away from it. Do not even push it to your subconscious because once you do, it becomes a problem and you might never, ever, ever recover from that. So, this is my advice to anyone who wants to venture either into debating, either into a professional field, either into any career that will always have a starting point. These are the things you need to accept, identify, discover, and then begin to address it one after the other.
The very true factor, and I think a life lesson, is that people need to be aware of their fears and need to actually go ahead and tackle things head on and have things that they need to deal with dealt with in a right frame of mind and in a right time frame as well. And it was very interesting to note that. But let's just discuss a bit about your own depth of journey and then also your own early stages of debating as well. I think you were one of the few debaters who had very predominantly debated and brought African perspectives to the global arena through, say, participating in different debate tournaments during the COVID 19 pandemic. Regrettable that it was. But I think the COVID 19 pandemic did allow a lot of like internationalization of debate, and a lot of people had more access to debating at that point of time. So, what were your like approaches to this, and how do you think that online debates has changed the space of debating itself, and how would you recommend people approach online debating today?
The truth is, the COVID 19 indeed moved the world to a global stage where people could easily associate, identify, and interact with each other without the barrier of proximity and without the barrier of location. When I moved into online debating in 2020, it was just like the normal thing. But the truth is, before 2020, my debate has always been in speaking. I have spoken in different tournaments in Nigeria. I remember some of them were inter school debate and some of them were more like a national thing. But when COVID 19 happened, I began to see the flaws in debating, which was primarily the issue of adjudication. I began to see that people weren't giving that proper feedback, people weren't getting the needed justification to why they lost in a debate. So when I studied the whole thing, I felt like I think I should move towards adjudication. And that was how I started judging debate tournaments and comms. But the thing with the virtual space is that it gave people a lot of opportunities. In the past, you cannot attend most tournaments because of proximity and because of money and because of location. But the online debating made it very accessible that someone in Africa can debate all over the continent of the world. It gave people the opportunity to, interact, to have conversations, to deal with people without necessarily thinking about immigration and getting visa and all of those things. But there is also a disadvantage that came with it. It also created a group where people can come on that same virtual space to say anything they want to say, talk to anybody anyhow, without regarding the person's feeling. Um, since I ventured into mental health, I discovered that individuals will likely respect themselves and respect each other when they are in a physical interaction because you get to see who you are talking to. You look at the persons and then you can actually see that level of exposure, and you wouldn't want to be the one that will be signaled out. But in a virtual space where our means of interaction is usually virtual and audio, most times I think Zoom became the latter part of the tournament thing because at the beginning it was merely WhatsApp. So people did debates on WhatsApp where they had to record themselves and then send the voice over and then people listen and judge. So, but when debating moved to Discord and all of those things, you still find out that people were not seeing themselves. People were more like interacting, listening to each other. So anybody could just come to the comment section and then drop a very rude comment that you don't even know who you are talking to. You don't even know how this person is going to react. You don't even know the level of thing that you are going to cause that person because it is a virtual space. And that was one big problem that we had to deal with. And then, people feeling like they can say whatever thing they want to say and they can say it however they want to say. That was a very difficult aspect of the virtual world that I feel was a little bit problematic. But aside that, the fact that people were able to communicate, have conversations, regardless of location, regardless of country, was something that I feel the online virtual world did, which is something that I am very, very happy it brought debating to people and made accessibility very easy. Yeah.
Honestly, I think for me, fundamentally, the COVID-19 pandemic changed a lot of doors, or opened a lot of doors rather for me, and changed a lot of perspectives for me too, because I got to meet people across the globe. I made a lot of friends from Africa. I made a lot of friends from other places around the world as well, and it became an interesting way in which we interact and we then exchange ideas and thoughts. But I think the unique perspective of your journey is that you're not just stationed in Africa anymore. You have now taken your competitive debate skills, analytical skills, and started focusing on applied sociology and global health and mental health disparities in your studies. So, how did debating influence this journey, and how did you start up with taking this next step towards Northern Arizona University, where you're currently situated?
Thank you so much. Uh, to be honest with you, I I got interested in mental health thing while I was in University of Nigeria, but it wasn't like something that was going to be my endpoint career. When I ventured into active debating, there is always this problem of inferiority complex, and it is a big aspect of mental health problem. And one thing that exists in debating circuit is that inferiority complex. However you want to admit it, however you want to look at it, there are certain categories of persons who has achieved what I call the echo chamber when it comes to debating. And then there are people who are trying to get into that echo chamber. So for every time there is a tournament, for every time there is a competition, for every time these things happen, there are individuals that feel bad and feel sad. But then, because of the way other people react to this, it becomes very difficult to identify if this is actually posing a challenge mentally to this individual. Also, it shouldn't be so because it is a tournament, and because it's a tournament, it's more like a game. So people shouldn't get hurt by those things. But you see actions of others, you see how people talk to people, you see how people make those things look like. Those individuals feel very, very bad and then can trigger a little bit of trauma and mental health imbalance about them. But aside from that, I began to see clearer. I began to look at the world from a very perspective of cultural, socio-economic, structurally, and all those aspects of underlying mental health issues that people do not talk about. In my years of debating, it prompted me to read, it prompted me to do more, it prompted me to, practically try to like understand problems and understand issues better. So, and I read a lot. That was the moment I began to then put one thing together. And I'm like, okay, I've understood this, I've understood that. How does this connect that can help me pursue a career that is going to help me to be a mental health advocacy? Also, I have witnessed people that deal with mental health challenges. I've seen people during my undergrad years. I've witnessed like two to three suicidal issues, and then one was someone that I had a personal interaction with. At least I knew what he was doing, and I read up his stuff. But you know, when I picture those years and how far they influenced my decision to pursue a career in mental health and global health, I think these were like something that happened as a result of my experiences, and then they came to form my research piece. Also, including what I discovered while still, engaging in debating with other persons. I think those were something that I largely found out. Yeah.
I mean, it's a sad way of which we see that people have regrettably lost their life, and I'm pretty sure that the work that you're doing would impact a lot of individuals beneficially to no small degree. And Collins, I'm pretty sure that it's important that the work needs to be done for mental health and other individuals. I think there is always like this idea that debate doesn't translate skills into the real world, but I think that it's always like a key factor where it helps you become more analytical, it helps you become more logical, and you've navigated many rigorous academic spaces, and communication styles also are very different. Once you start debating, you become sometimes more clearer in the method that you communicate. So have you seen any impacts about your analytical skills or analytical tools that you've used while debating into your research work, or how your communication patterns or styles have changed?
Yes, I think it indeed influenced my communication pattern because um, what debate helped me realize is the fact that I have to think thoroughly before presenting an argument. So, in my work, sometimes when I write my papers or when I do my mental health research, I am looking at both the positive and the negative aspects. I am not just trying to look at a single aspect of the problem. Debate helps you to think positively and think negatively, and then you come to a conclusion before you decide a side. So that analytical skills helps me to sit down, meditate, and then look at things, and I feel like, okay, I think this is where I want to look at. This is something I can actually check before making a validity or making a validified conclusions. So they are much more important when it comes to making points, when it comes to writing academic papers, when it comes to researching, and then when it comes to critical point of deciding how you want to address a particular problem. So I think those are some valued and some very critical analytical um, skills that debating helped me culture and nurtured, and it's something that I'm using at every day of my life. Because in academics, it's more about you know argument, policy evaluations, and just that it is more about solving a problem. Unlike debate where people just look at those policies in terms of I want to speak and then I want to win, even when they don't look at the weighing of those policies. It's different when it comes to the academic world, but it has really helped me a lot to have a foresight and to look at things critically before I venture into them. I think that's what I would say in respect to that. Thank you.
A very nice navigation about different ways in which you can approach skills which are critical for transferring from debate to other practical life skills. I think we discussed this aspect so much. So this next segment is probably going to be dealing with a bit of your journey, giving feedback, giving mentoring, and becoming a judge and adjudicator for so many tournaments. So let's start off with discussing your role as a debate director. And I think also just generally you mentoring your juniors and other people, how did you approach this subject in terms of teaching different individuals? And since you are also a teacher now, in terms of a graduate teaching assistant, this is a very topical thing to discuss because you've had like skills transfer from that too. So how do you like approach this mentoring, and how do you approach this coaching of different individuals when you were coaching students who were junior to you in terms of college?
Thank you for that's a wonderful question. I think in my undergrad, I I got very used to teaching because I did a lot of things with folks. But on the debate aspect, I think in 2020 or so, or 2021, I became the director of training and director of competition, University of Nigerian Debating Society. One thing that I wanted to do was I wanted my institution to break records. We have never had any University of Nigerian debating institution make it to finals of Pan African Debate Championship or won the National Universities Championship in Nigeria or gotten an invite to judge the World University Debating Championship. So when I took over, those were the goals I wanted to do, and those were the things I wanted to influence. So we started with people who had no knowledge in debating. There were people that I had to reach out to join UNDS. I think I know of Chuma Raymond. He's doing very well. He later took over as the president. I can remember. I think I know of Kelechi and some other persons. So when I took over, we were trying to build a structure where we teach people these things and then help them to realize that it is a game and not a do or die affair. Those were just my goals. And by the special grace of God, I achieved that goal because I went on to judge the finals of Pan African University Debating Championship. I went on to be invited. When I mean invited, I was paid to judge the 2022 World University Debating Championship. I went on to judge so many tournaments across the globe. I went on to take my the University of Nigerian debating team to all Nigerian University Debating Championship, where four of those teams broke and made it to the semi-finals and finals of the novice round. Also, my legacy transformed after that because UNN later won the All Nigerian University Debating Championship. So when I look at these years and things I was able to do, I see it as, being fortunate enough to identify what I wanted. And I pushed for that and we achieved that. It's something like when I sit down and think about it, I smile because it wasn't easy. I knew the resources it took me in 2022 to fund UNN debating teams to the nationals. I knew the sweat I had to undergo through taking a team of almost 12 debaters to another region in Nigeria amid the cost and everything. But I feel a little bit happy because I inspired people back then. I helped people to realize that, oh, you can do this. You got this. This is not going to be an issue. And I was also able to achieve my personal goals, which is the most important thing for me because being able to achieve your own goal and being able to, set out a goal and a value system you want to impact and attract. And at the end of the day, being able to achieve that and raising young people back then who had nothing but believed that they can change the story and then rewrite the history was something that I feel very, very happy that I was able to do with the support of the persons that I worked with. I feel very satisfied to how much I impacted the University of Nigerian Debating Society in 2020, 2021, 2022, up until 2023 when I became less active in the debating circuit.
I mean, it's a wonderful feeling, right? That you have achieved something in terms of your way in which you wanted to achieve. Maybe this might be something like your students achieved or something that you were doing mentoring and that made them feel better and feel much more like in tune with it. So, how does that like work out for you? Does that motivate you to do better? Does that motivate you to do more? And how did it pan out for you at the end?
Well, I think it's indeed motivated me to do more, but no longer on the aspect of debating. I think it has helped me to do more in the aspect of career, academic, and research. At least I started mentoring people. I had someone who knew nothing about academic research. I pulled him in, and by the special grace of God, I've been able to help him have two academic research papers that is undergoing review in top journal. I also have one other person that I also invested in, and we came out and started looking at various aspects of research. I've also been able to help that person have three academic research papers that is still undergoing review. On my own part, it has helped me. It helped me to believe that I can make it. It helped me believe that I can do a whole lot for myself, regardless of the situation, background, or challenges that I'm facing. It kind of gave me the goal that you can do it. I think after that 2022 debate performance by my institution, it changed my narrative. That was when I began to look at other dimensions. It helped me, push myself in my career. That I want to put it here that aside the fact that I ended up in the United States, I think I got admitted in four regions of the world in top schools if I wanted to. Not because of the simple fact that I was good enough, but the fact that I believed that I can put myself out there, and then I believe that I can achieve something that I have zeal for, and which was some goals that I cultivated while being an active debater. Because it takes one thing to believe in yourself, it takes another thing to actually put yourself out there. There are so many persons who believe in themselves, who think that they can be the next world best speaker, but because they are not putting themselves out there, it is very difficult. that they would ever achieve those goals. But note here, they have that belief. It is in them, but they are not putting out themselves. So those two things are different. You can believe in yourself and still not make it.
You put it down very nicely in terms of how you mentioned it to us, but I think the broader perspective is that you keep fighting and you keep doing things, and that fight itself becomes something at the end of the day and becomes successful at the end of the day. So let's discuss a bit about your own affiliations towards judging and adjudicating different tournaments and across numerous competitions. So you've mentioned what motivated you into skipping towards judging and then moving and doing judging more, but what essentially drove you towards doing some other stuff around judging, like teaching people how to do better? And what are some of the common mistakes that you found in judging that you often reflected upon and could recommend to people who are listening in today?
In 2021 or 2020, I joined a particular tournament. I wanted to speak. So when I listened to a particular speech, because those years they send their speech on WhatsApp. So after the judges have ruled, you can go back and re-listen and then go back and look at those speeches. So I listened to a call by a judge and then I went back to listen to the debate. At the end of the debate call, I was like, no, this is not right. This call cannot be justified by any reason. And then I wanted to challenge the status quo then, because I wanted to break in that echo chamber that makes people think because you are so much known, you've been known by so many people that you can actually be the favorite to win a particular competition. So I wanted to adjudicate because there is a need to adjudicate and to make people feel happy that the things they are saying are being recorded. So that was when I decided to get into adjudication. And before you know it, I rose very fast. But I was still doing debating because I know I won South African Debate Open Championship. I won some good debate tournaments. But then judging became the larger and the bigger aspect of my career in debating because I just wanted to let people know yes, you won because you deserve to win. You lost because you deserved to lose, not because someone likes someone else in a room, or not because, oh, I'm friends with Das and therefore I should make Das win in this room. So those were just the major reason why I ventured into debating and then more like into adjudication. And I also wanted to make adjudication more like a feedback thing, not when, oh, you lost and this is why you lost. You can go deal with it. No, I don't believe in that. Oh, you lost, but this is why you lost. But let's look at how you can improve. Those were my own methods of looking at it. I don't dehumanize you. I don't make you feel literally very, very hurtful. I don't make you think like, oh, you didn't give me a very good speech. I want to put it here. There are judges that judge you and say, hey, bro, hey, you didn't do well. You can go fuck yourself. Sorry for using that language. But there are judges that are like that. There are people that are like that because they feel like it is my power, and then I gave you a food. If you are not okay with the food, go and perform better. That is very dehumanizing, but we don't see it. What we see is, oh, I'm the one that judged. It is my judging and stuff like that. So I wanted it to be more like, yes, regardless that you lost, you did very well. Let's look at it and then see how you can improve and how you can become better. Those were just my own philosophy, my discipline, and the reason why I spent a lot of my career in debating trying to be an adjudicator, and then trying to adjudicate most of the tournament. Yeah.
I think that's also a noble cause, right? Because I think there's always like confusion, and I've also seen this nepotistic sort of like substitute where people are friends with each other and preferences are given to friends and so on and so forth. So I think that becomes an important concern also because people don't really know what they have made a mistake with, and it often at that cost they're not able to grow. And I think judge feedback is a very substantially important thing for them to grow and do better in terms of what they are achieving or what they're trying to achieve. So you really, really hit the nail on the head there. But since you mentioned some of the speaking tournaments that you have won and you have contrasted it with judging, and have also mentioned how judging can differ a bit, what are the principal things that you think a speaker and a judge should look into when they're preparing, and how can they motivate themselves to do better and do different things which they need to do for their roles?
For the speakers, I think an average speaker, and then to anyone who wants to be a speaker, be it at a debating tournament or be it as a public speaker, two things should always be paramount. The first is, why am I speaking on this? What impact, value, change, or contribution do I want to make? When you realize this thing, it helps you to understand the reason why you are supporting the motion that you are supporting, the reason why you must do well to make that motion understandable to judges and to the audience. And then, very importantly, the impact that you are making or the contributions you are bringing to that motion. In academics, they tell you for every research, there must be an objective, and then there must be a gap in literature. And that gap in literature signifies what you are bringing to the table that no other researcher has done. If you think debating is healthy for people and you want to research the impact of debating on mental health, you have to go beyond to prove it is not about just winning, but you are looking at the mental health aspect, and that becomes a gap in literature. The same way it applies when it comes to speaking. You are not just speaking because, oh, I think this motion is beautiful. No, you are speaking to change narratives of someone who may have never listened to the things that you are talking about. You are speaking to convince your judges that there is a significant impact that they should take out from your speech. And so, most of the time, people think it is about getting 80 speaks. It is about showing how fluent and how beautiful your voice is. But it is more about the impact and how you convince and pass a message. Because for every debate tournament, for every debate motion, those motions are policies and narratives, argumentation that you are trying to work on. And so that it's on the part of speakers. To the judges, I think as a judge, things I look out for is usually what is being appealed to me and to the audience. What are the impact this person is making? How does this impact make sense? Is it justifiable enough? Beyond reasonable doubt, is this point very valid? In research, the only way your paper gets accepted or your research makes sense is when there is validity. That is the word, validity. That is, someone can look at this result you found out and say, okay, if I go back to conduct this research, I'm still going to get, even if it is not 100% validity, I can get like 80% validity. This can be validified that it is real. And so and also in making generalization and conclusions. So if your research isn't trying to act on these three things, it's considered not solid enough, not very strong, and does not have academic potential. So to the judges, those are the things I look out for. You are making the speech. What is the impact? Is this speech going to prove that this is a problem? Because there are judges that judge people simply because people are speaking good English. Oh, I think the judge is doing this, doing that. Oh, we support this. Those are very beautiful. I call it rhetoric. It is rhetorical. You're just, rephrasing rhetorical argumentation. But the depth of analysis is beyond the smartness, beyond the beautiful voice, beyond the good English. Let's then pick out the impacts in this debate. Let's pick out the very important points they are pushing. Can this point, beyond reasonable doubt, prove that this is the rightful thing? Because by then you are not judging using your metrics. You are not judging using academic metrics. You are not judging using any unverified metrics. You are judging using the metrics that directly flows into the information, meaning you do not have to criticize or crucify a debater because you read a particular thing online and then you use it against them. No, because you are not doing research. Debate is not a research. So even if someone makes a very wrong, makes a callous statement, for example, says things like, "Oh, refer Africa as a country," you don't have to say, "Oh, this is very wrong. You are going to fail." No, because you are judging them based on what they speak and not based on what they have researched. And that's why sometimes debaters are encouraged not to use their cell phones. Speak from your head. So it's a bit it's lot uh, it's very different compared to the traditional methods of trying to judge, because in academics people judge. I have served as peer reviewers for papers. I've read people's research that I have to tell the editors accept or reject this paper. So I also look at those things, but the difference here is in academic research judging, you have a metrics, you verify everything, and then you match it to an existing database. But to debating, you don't match it to any research or the existing database. You only follow the rubrics of how you should judge a tournament, regardless of your own biases. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian and someone is arguing against Christianity. You don't put in your own bias. So these are the things I would tell a judge to look out for and be able to filter those unwanted things that seems very obscure to helping these debaters win, or that makes it difficult for you to give accurate justification to why you ranked a person low or why you ranked a person very high. Yeah.
Wonderfully said. I think there's always like a factor where you need to think about how criticality or critical mass is judging, and what kind of challenges and different ways in which you can bridge those gaps of conversations and different individual requirements. You also elaborate so nicely upon what you're working on currently as well, and how it translates into this debating journey and debating experiences. Now, just diving into, say, more specific contextual material, since you have like sociology as your like subject right now, there is often seen that people are not reading properly for debates. So what are your opinions in terms of people reading for debate and gaining knowledge that they need to? And also, since you are part of, say, a sociology program, and how you're working around sociology and the work around mental health and so on, what recommendations would you give to people when they're trying to read into sociology and do similar things to it?
Well, I would always tell people stay informed. I didn't put it here, but I'm also like, focusing on public health minor. Um, my research kind of is an interdisciplinary research that translates between social work, psychology, sociology, and public health. So, working on the structural, social, and structural dimensions of public health and global health. It is not easy seeing someone in the social sciences get deep into public health. Like most times I sit down and then I look at. I've done research on blood samples. I've done research on environmental hazardous properties that are very toxic to the blood. I've looked at drugs usage. I've looked at fentanyl and some of these substances that are actively impacting health. I've also looked at lungs and cardiovascular diseases. Now, this sounds abstract to people because You can't be in social sciences and then you are looking at blood samples. But I had to do those labs. I had to take classes in biostatistics, take classes in epidemiology, and then look at this aspect of public health samples and data analyzation because they are very important. How did I get it through it, and how did I, you know, get to deal with this without any challenges? It's simply by reading, by opening my mind, sitting down to look at things and then look at the correlation. How does this correlate? So, as a debater, you are in the sciences. You have to read about politics. You have to read about IR, international relations. You have to have a little bit knowledge about India, about China, about US, about United Kingdom, and then about Europe, and then about Africa. You don't have to say because I am from South Africa, I don't care about the policies that is happening in Nigeria. I don't care about the policies that is happening in the United States. What if they give you a motion that has you to compare the issues of South Africa to that of Indian economy and then justify using probably the Western globalization? And then you get into the debate and you are very, very um, unbalanced. You don't have any knowledge. You are empty. So the goal is try to read. Sometimes sit down and look at the policy analysis from this particular side. Look at for example, how does Indian economy function when it comes to this aspect of globalization? What is the differences between Indian democracy and that of the Western democracy? What are the policies that unify Western world and the other aspects of the world? What is the globalization of the West? How does this differ from the Africanism of the global south or that of the global north? All these things are very, simple things, but you need to be informed. Listen to news. I don't encourage a debater to spend most of your time TikToking, most of your time going through Instagram. Read things that are informative, things that informs you, that keeps you updated. Because a man that is not informed is a destroyed man. You cannot be a debater, but you cannot comment on the issue that is happening globally. It doesn't make you a good debater. It means that it's just like you're a researcher and you claim to talk about mental health problem, but you don't even understand the mental health research that focuses on probably the issues affecting women and children or the issues affecting young adults. What then are you talking about? What makes you a very solidified researcher when you don't even understand the level of, the percentage to how, say, student populations are dealing with mental health problem in the particular country that you reside? So that's how debate is. And that's my advice to anyone who is into debating, but they are not making enough time to do things. You have to read. Sometimes read, like the goal of being in grad school is that you read and you read and you read to the point that you are exhausted. But reading keeps you informed, listening to informations, looking at world news, trying to browse the current happenings in the world. Those are things that keeps you informed, keeps you updated, and then helps you to navigate problems that you may likely encounter as a debater. It has to do with critical thinking, but you cannot think, your brain can't think if you are not feeding it. Your brain has to be fed for it to produce the knowledge that you need. And the only way to feed the brain is not by eating, it is by consuming news, books, articles, research, publications, policy readings. All those things are the only way that your brain can think because you fed them with what they need to produce result for you.
Very nice perspective, and I think it's something which is very informative to everybody who's going to go ahead and approach this topic and approach debating too. But there's also one very unique aspect of your life. You've stopped debating actively right now, and you've transitioned out of active debating. So, what led to this decision? Why did you stop? Do you plan to return? What is the story behind this?
Thank you. The truth is, I did not, like they say, old soldier never dies. I still try to judge one or two tournaments, but I've not spoken since 2023. Or yeah, my last ever debate that I spoke was, I think, in February 2023, and I ended at finals. But I've tried to judge a few debates. Like this year, I judged like four or five, just one, very little of them. But what I did was I moved my debate into academics and research. The reason was very simple. At a point, I felt like debating is good, but it is not solving problem. What we do in debate is just entertain ourselves, and then that is it. So I wanted to look at other aspect of life where I can become a professional and someone that can use my knowledges that I've gained in my years of debating to justify why this particular area is good. So, and that was when I decided to get into academics. When I started, I wasn't so much in love with research. I want to put it here that when I began my graduate studies, I had no publications. I think I had just two conference. But it's been 1 year, 6 months down the line. I have over 12 publications that four has been accepted, published, and then about 12 undergoing review. Within 1 year, I was able to transform my knowledge from debating into making practicable argumentation that when you read my paper and then it says, oh, I think suicide is being caused by social isolation. And then you are reading the argument and then reading the facts and then reading the evidence that supports that argumentation. So I wanted to contribute more and then to help young people understand the problems that they deal with, but from the academic perspective. I never saw myself that I was going to be a debate career professional. No, 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 that was never the part of it. Yes, I enjoyed my days of debating. I did my best as a debater. I pushed for narratives, I pushed for policies, I supported a lot of things. But those years are over. I still try to, do one or two debates, like, but it is no longer the contemporary aspect of BP debating. It might be like policy debates where you come out and then you talk about policies. It might be like in US here, I've done the Regent. It's called Oxford debate type. But those ones are also debates that tries to look at government policies and justifies why such policies are good or bad. So that was just the reason. And I think I'm beginning to like the academic route. I'm beginning to love the academic and research profession. It's giving me the opportunity to look at issues and try to be an expert in a field. Yeah, but some persons have that calling. People go on to, become debate coaches and then they get paid and that becomes their career, which is very beautiful. But all of us cannot be into that aspect. Some persons have to go forward with careers, professional development, and then, trying to be who you want to be to contribute very importantly to the growth of the world, the economy, and your environment. So I think that's just my reason why I pulled away from the global stage.
That's a very sweet way of putting away how people have apprehensions about taking away new career paths or taking part in different dynamics. I think you really like pacify a lot of conversation points that people would have with themselves when they're thinking about, is this the right path for me and what to do ahead and what not to do ahead. And I've seen that a lot of people take away unique experiences, and I'm assuming that it's also so for you. And then these unique experiences go and translate to different work experiences beyond debating, and down the road after university you have been helped on along with, say, these perspectives, and you come back to debating from time to time when you're judging and you're doing different aspects. And I hope that we keep seeing you further for a few more years at least, in terms of judging and seeing you around the circuit. But let's just go on to this last segment. It's a very like short segment of rapid fire questions. I'll be asking you a question or a state. I'll be giving you a statement. You have to answer in like a word or a phrase, whichever is easier for you to do, and we can quickly like rumble through a lot of like different aspects. So the first question: British parliamentary debating, policy forums, or Lincoln Douglas or Oxford styles. Which style is the best for you, and which is the best for critical thinking?
I've done the both. British parliamentary speaking is very good. It creates a balanced argumentation. But I think Oxford is much better for policy thinking because it gives you the opportunity to stand on a side and then give and justify. For BP, BP is not very good for policy kind of debating because um, it is two sides doing the same thing and yet they are oppositions. So sometimes you end up saying that people are just regurgitating the same thing that has already been said, but then in a very smarter way. But I feel like for Oxford, you don't know it, you don't know it. You have it, you have it. If it's a problem, it is a problem. BP, you might know it, and then you don't really know it. And then you get in, and after the first person has finished speaking and you are in the closing, you get all knowledge and then go there and make it look like, oh, you are the architect of this. You don't get that opportunity in Oxford because you just have two sides. You don't know it, you don't know it. So I think PP is good for deep, engaged conversations, but Oxford is very good for policy aspect and then for to try to like make something very clear and all of those things.
The Nigerian debate circuit in one word.
Oh, my country. It's a good circuit, but full of drama. That is the only thing I can say. Good circuit, full of drama.
Fun. The most effective way to start a debate speech to instantly grab the judge's attention.
Do an introspective and a retrospective thoughts and thinking within you. Sit down, look at that thing retrospectively and look at it introspectively. That way, you will get the coins and the necks of it, and so that you can be able to like flow very adequately. Yeah.
The single most common mistake new judges are making.
Assumptions, thinking, oh, he should do better or he would do better, especially before the round. You wake up and you have someone like Teku Andrew in your opening government. You have Mace in your opening opposition, and then in closing, you have one underdog, let's say Diva, in your closing, and then you have another underdog, let's say Samuel. And then you're just like, oh, this round, I think it's an opening debate because Teku is in opening government, Mace in closing, in opening opposition. That's a very wrong thing to do. Don't assume who wins a debate before the debate tournament, but get into it with your free mind, open mind, and then let people speak, and then you make your judgment. So I think pre-debate assumptions is the biggest problem that judges make, and most times those are the things that influences their decisions at the end of the day.
True. So, what requires more critical thinking? A debate rebuttal or an unexpected question from a student in class?
Um, I think what requires more critical thinking is an unexpected questions. For example, when you go for conferences and you've prepared your slide and you are talking about, hey, American Assessment Health Institution found out that 80% of American college students are dealing with mental health. And then someone throws a question, does that justify the fact that we should spend this funding on issue of mental health? If you are not prepared, you cannot defend why your research result is valid. So I think for debaters, you should be prone enough to listen, to argue, questions and respond, because the point of information POI is actually coming from what you've spoken. Nobody brings point of information from an information that is not existing within the debate.
The greatest life lesson you've learned from a debate loss.
Hmm. Winning a debate doesn't mean that you are not worthy, or you are not bright, or you are not intelligent. It means that you were not persuasive enough to convince the judges. And that is how I've been able to see and deal with debates, especially when I don't break as a judge. And then you look at the record and you are like, I chaired 5 rooms from round one to round five. How come? Just accept that, well, probably they did what they wanted to do, because it is what you tell yourself in those moments is what that would make you or mar you. So people should be careful of how they come to conclusions, especially after a debate round that they didn't do so well.
What is the one thing that global debaters would need to hear more often from African debaters?
I think the global debate should try to destroy the echo chambers, give people opportunity, let people be who they want to be, but try them. Sometimes I feel global debaters judge people unnecessarily. Someone may have not had the opportunity to go to world university debates, but they are very good when that they are better than some of the world debates breaking adjudicators. What makes you a good adjudicator is not about the number of tournaments you've judged. If I have a connection with any cap in any tournament, I will judge all the tournaments, regardless if I am good or not. Debaters must hear it. And I'm saying it here, and it is a proof. Most debaters don't get judging gigs because they are so good. It is because they know who is the CAP or some of the CAP members. And then people, because virtue of the fact that they have not judged numerous tournaments, are mostly not considered by this CAP. I want to say it here. Someone may have judged 5 tournaments, and in those 5 tournaments, their judging skills can never match, are so unmatchable that you will find out that debaters who have broken in worlds, PAUDC, EADC, and the rest of them are not so good when it comes to adjudication to that person. But because they don't have PAUDC, they don't have Indian Open, they don't have Asian Open, they don't have WUDC in their profile, they get they don't get considered. And then you consider people because they have all these profiles. Global debaters need to destroy that echo chamber of hegemonized career for some group of people. It doesn't help debates. It doesn't help it. It rather creates um, um, a discriminatory aspect of debating to individual, and that is why people are more interested in breaking than giving good feedback. People are more interested of saying whatever thing they want to say so that make sure that they break than trying to understand what it takes to be a good adjudicator. I think this is the biggest problem with the global debating circuit.
What a wonderful way to sort of like end out the session as well. And that brings us to the close of this insightful discussion. I think we have traveled from different conversations around Nigeria, also laboratories and research of Northern Arizona University with Collins. And I think exploring the analytical prowess that you hold and also your journey and your experiences would be something that the viewers and listeners would have a lot of things to take away from. Also addressing critical issues like global health, mental health disparities, and also a very critical aspect of discussing suicide and the prevention of the same in terms of how you have explored the work or explored doing different work around that particular field. Thank you again, Collins, for sharing your incredible journey, your wisdom on discovering different talents and mentoring different individuals, and your own philosophy around communication. You can find out more about Collins' research in, say, the description. We'll add different links and different details down below. And to everybody else, thank you for tuning in. and mastering the art of the spoken word. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time as well. Collins, last few words for everybody before we end off.
Thank you, Das, for the opportunity. I just want to encourage everyone. Keep doing what you are doing. Do not care about the resources and financial aspect now, but keep doing the things you are doing. On a very good day, when you sit back and look back, you would see how much you've done and how far you've gone. To the debaters, those that are coming in new, those that are still there, to the new ones, it is a toxic circuit and a toxic place. You have to earn your place, and you must earn your place by showing that you deserve to earn that particular place. And then to current debaters, both people that started with me, those people I met, make debate more fun. Let people see it is not a do or die affair, and then make it a sports ground where people come to learn, grow, and then become whoever they want to become. The debating is a road to a path. It is not a path itself. People discover themselves through debating, and people end up being whoever they want to be in debating. And I know so many persons that met me, I wouldn't call their name, but I know how much I impacted in their life at their early careers, and they are doing well for themselves. So I leave you all with this last statement. There is beautiful things out there, but you have to discover it yourself. Thank you.
Truly, truly well spoken, and that is the perfect ending towards the particular session as well. Thank you again, Collins, and see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.